highly stressed, you've either gone through or at the stage of burnout, you need to adopt strategies to reduce your risk of stress-related diseases immediately. Did everyone get that? Okay, so how do we do that? How do we reduce our stress? How do we try to turn this around? That's what we're going to discuss. Have you heard of adrenal glands? Okay, so your adrenal glands, they're two bits of body tissue, very important. They sit just above your kidneys and they respond to triggers from the hormone play director, the hypothalamus, evoking the fight or flight response that we've all felt when you're scared and suddenly your heart pounds and your breathing quickens. It's one of the job of the adrenals via a blood sugar releasing mechanism. So various adrenal hormones stimulate the conversion of protein to energy so that our energy levels remain high even after the blood sugar or glucose that was released for the initial fight or flight response reaction wears off. Adrenal hormones help maintain elevated blood pressure, create the internal changes needed for dealing with those kinds of stressors like emotional shocks, infection, high workload, weather changes, environmental chemicals, and trauma. Over time, however, particularly in the sources of stress, if they are continuous, these hardworking adrenal glands can succumb to serious job burnout. So what happens is we put the blood pressure goes up, elevated blood pressure, all these things so that we can handle the stressor. But if it's left there in that emergency response state for any period of time, now we end up with damage and we end up with other issues, correct? So some of us, though, actually end up becoming what we call adrenaline junkies. And these are people that are run. You know, when I was younger, for sure, I used to, when I had even my 4 kids, I would travel, I would do seminars. My husband and I were like running all the time. We're probably still running all the time. But at that time, people would say to me, you make me tired just looking at you. Like, how do you even fit all these things in a day? And how do you go about, always running and doing all this stuff? And I used to laugh it off and think, I don't know, just do, it's great. Like, I don't have an issue with it. I felt great. Now, I look at my kids or at my daughter-in-laws or other people and I think, you're going through adrenal burnout. How do you do this? How are you even fitting this in your day? And I stop and I think, I used to be that person. And it's not good. Like at the time, it feels good. You feel great. You have tons of energy from your body's natural stimulant production. You get a whole lot done and you're skinny. So what's there not to like, right? Wouldn't everyone want this? Well, the problem is you cannot sustain that state indefinitely, that emergency state. Excuse me. Eventually, you will fall off the cliff and crash. When the crash comes, you will reach adrenal burnout. And unfortunately, it's not pretty. And many of us are walking around with adrenal burnout. Unfortunately, it's estimated 85% of all American adults walking around have burnt out adrenal glands. Medically, they will recognize it when you actually have what they officially call a nervous breakdown, where you've gone crazy and now they will put you into the hospital to try to help you. And so because we haven't gone through that, they're not recognizing that you have this serious adrenal burnout, which is actually you've had a nervous breakdown. It just hasn't been medically diagnosed. Most people deal with it by drinking coffee and taking Prozac. Addictions develop because the antidepressants initially cause the release of a lot of serotonin into your brain, making you feel calm and happy. And what happens then? We do more. We take on more, right? The irony is these same toxic chemicals that give you an immediate release of serotonin will then cause you to use up more serotonin. And you end up on this hamster wheel. Hormone imbalance always leads to weight gain. So to keep adrenal and cortisol levels working at optimum level, you must live a balanced life, whatever that balanced life can look like for you. So let's discuss some things that support your adrenal glands. B vitamins, so any kind of B vitamins, a B complex, vitamin C, magnesium, these are all essential for your adrenal glands. Foods that are high in B vitamins, we're back to the dark green leafy vegetables again, right? Whole grains, nutritional yeast, seeds and nuts, and legumes. These are all high in B vitamins. Magnesium. More and more people taking magnesium supplements today, right? To kind of relax you in the evening, help you sleep, relax your muscles. It supports your adrenal glands. That's why so many people are lacking magnesium today, because you're burning that magnesium. So you're burning your B vitamins and you're burning your magnesium. Dark green leafy vegetables again. Legumes, seeds and nuts, soy milk, bananas, oatmeal, avocado, all high in magnesium. So there's two kinds of stress. We have a chronic stress and acute stress. Long-term, unrelenting, seemingly inescapable. It wears down your body, mind, and spirit. That is chronic stress. Acute would be life's traumatic events and most challenging situations. So two kinds of stress. So let's talk about chronic stress first. There's two responses to chronic stress. The first one is hyperactive stress response. This is where you frantically try to wrestle with everything that's troubling you all at once. Women especially are good at this. We figure we're multitaskers and we can just do it all, right? Hypoactive stress response is where you are too drained now to deal with even the most pressing problems. So a lot of times we start out where we're in that hyperactive stress and we burn ourselves out to a point that we're done. We're so exhausted, we just can't handle any now. Factors that shape a stress response could be our age, our health status, the type of stressor, the duration of exposure, genetics, early childhood experiences, nutritional status, alcohol, drugs, medications, social support, and beliefs. These are all what shape your stress response, and each of us handles stress differently. Physical changes that are the direct result of chronic stress. So now we can start to have hair loss. We can have losing skin tone, elasticity, not seeing results from exercise routines, and accumulation of fat, especially around the middle area. So, yeah, it was spoken what we're all thinking about ourselves. Warning signs and symptoms of high stress: nervousness, anxiety, sadness, depression, anger, fatigue, sleep disorders. Take a look at that list. Do any of them fit you? Right? I think all of us have some of it. And of course, the more you have, the more adrenal burnout you are dealing with. So what if we have long-term stress? There's a consequence to it, right? Something's got to give. Women are more likely than men to report stress. So 51% opposed to 43%. That's probably true, right? Like when men get together, what do they say? Hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm so stressed. How about you? Oh, yeah, I'm really stressed too. Usually not, right? But us women will get together and say that, won't we? How stressed we are and what. So we express it. Men don't express it. They bottle it up a little bit more than us. Women are 2.7 times more likely than men to develop autoimmune diseases. So although men are subjected to autoimmune disease as well, which is the direct result of stress, including rheumatoid arthritis, thyroid disorders, inflammatory bowel disease, etc. Stress-induced heart disease is the #1 killer of women, but only 13% of women consider heart disease a health threat. We tend to think of men more as the issue for heart disease and heart attacks. 64% of women who die suddenly of heart disease had no previous symptoms, and 50% in all other cases. The first symptom can be instant death. So if we're waiting to have a heart problem, you might fit in that first 50% of instant death. You don't get another chance. So don't wait to have a heart problem, right? Let's try to prevent. Strokes kill more women than men. Women represent 61% of all stroke deaths. Women have a higher prevalence of pain than men and suffer more musculoskeletal pain than men in an older age. Stressful events, including loss of a loved one, they are linked to an increase of breast cancer for women and prostate cancer in men within 2 years of the event. Highly stressed are more likely to have a reoccurrence. So in saying that, I have seen it over and over. Going through a stressful time in your life, whatever it might be, but loss of a loved one, divorce, anything that really takes you through a very stressful time in your life, you need to do whatever it takes to reverse that now. Take really good care of yourself, heal yourself, because literally almost to the day, 2 years later, you could have cancer. Okay, so you want to do whatever you can to prevent that from happening. And a lot of times, when you're going through that, it takes a long time to recuperate. And even a full year can go by before you realize you're somewhat in a position to start taking care of yourself. So if you know somebody else that's going through that, you help take care of them, because that first year is really important that they heal, that they need to heal. There are 3 phases of stress. The first one is the alarm reaction. So you're called to arms. Your body reacts. The second one is resistance, the fight or flight response. So you make a quick decision what to do. And then the state of exhaustion. The stress remains in our environment too long, days, weeks, months. And if that stressor persists, then disease and death may be inevitable, such as a heart attack. So we don't want that stress to linger in a deep way. Physical effects of a sudden stressor. So, like we said, your blood pressure could go up, right? Your heart rate can go up. Increased heart contraction, increased blood flow to active muscles, decreased blood flow to other areas. Dilated pupils, bronchial tubes, increased muscular strength. Anything to just rev you up to get you through that ordeal. So, if you've ever been through like a fight or flight experience, this is an example. When we had a health food store actually way back in Calgary, my first 2 kids were only born. I didn't have 4 yet, I had 2. And my one little guy, I remember my husband and my dad were rolling in this big upright heavy glass freezer, and they were doing it on broom handles and rolling it in. And they put it to the spot, and just as they were pulling out the broom handles and they went to pull out the second one, my little guy decided to stick his finger under it, and it came down on the finger. And my mom and I both kind of screeched and went, finger. And my dad and my husband were looking around like, what are they? And so my mom and I, without thinking, literally picked up that freezer and got my child's hand out of there. Now later, for fun, I was trying to, I couldn't even budge this thing. And my mom has severe arthritis in her wrists. And how the two of us just like lifted up this freezer so my child could get his finger out is amazing. But that's what happens when that adrenaline pumps through your system, right? You've got that energy and that strength that you never knew you had, and the body compensates for it all so that it can get you through that initial short bout ordeal. But when we stay in that position, that's when it becomes a problem. And so we need to identify what stressors in our life is causing stress. What things are currently bothering you? What do you consider to be a stressor? So I just want you to think about that. Later this evening or as you go through this, think about what stressors you have. And with those stressors, which option are you going to handle it? So the first one is to avoid or remove that stressor. So think about a stressor in your life. Are you able to avoid or remove it? And the second one is called healthy adaptation. So sometimes you can't remove it, right? So how do we healthfully adapt? So the 4 aspects of well-being would be physical, social, mental, spiritual, which we talked about this morning as well. And let's talk about ways to deal with that. So stress, when you're under stress, it releases a hormone called cortisol. Have you heard of that? So cortisol will actually store fat in your body. So a lot of times people are going through, they'll do their diet, they'll do exercise, they're working it out, trying to get rid of excess weight, but they're just not losing it. And so the thing to ask is, are you under stress? Is this what's causing you to store that fat? Here are symptoms of excess cortisol. Extra fat around the neck area specifically. Anxiety, bloating, memory problems. Again, you can see the list of everything that cortisol can do in your body. It's very damaging, isn't it? Like adrenaline, cortisol will similarly give you energy, but more in response to stress. So for this reason, cortisol is known as the stress hormone. Your body releases this hormone so that you're able to lift a car, swim away from a shark, whatever it takes. This is the right use for it. The problem is again, when you stay there and you begin to make lots of cortisol. That one? That one? Yeah, no problem. So again, lots of things that the effects of cortisol can do. It'll raise your blood pressure. It'll create insulin resistance, so people who have type 2 diabetes. It can also come from high stress as well. Skipping meals or under-eating can cause your body to perceive you are in a famine, so the body will secrete cortisol to help you through this time. So again, we're trying to lose weight, we start to skip meals, we cut calories. Now you're making cortisol and you're storing the fat. So it's like this vicious cycle, and merry-go-round goes on and on. Now, how we store the fat makes a difference too. We have apple shape and we have a pear shape. So the pear shape, men and women, have deposits of fat primarily in their hips, thighs, and buttocks. Women especially who are hypoactive stress. This means you're too drained to deal with the stress and you're more likely to be pear-shaped. So you're exhausted. You just can't, function or deal with it. This one is the apple-shaped men, women. They store fat in their abdomens. They do not have to be obese to have an excess of abdominal fat. Women or men who are hyperactive stress, those who are frantically trying to do everything at once and deal with everything, these are more likely to be apple shape. So they could be totally lean and just the big beer belly kind of idea, right? These people are a high risk for heart disease. So especially men, be aware of that. So our adrenal glands and our thyroid are what we would call kissing cousins. They're very related. When one is off, the other one goes off. So your adrenals get stressed out, and now they affect your thyroid. When our adrenals are overworked, our body essentially steals from the other systems to produce those stress-fighting hormones and cover the adrenal slack. The result is that the thyroid gets pulled into play and shifts energy away from its regular duties, such as your metabolic rate. And when this happens, symptoms both the adrenal and thyroid imbalance occurs. Low thyroid is very common in Canada. Did you know that? So many people have an underactive thyroid. First of all, we're not getting enough vitamin D. That can play a role. Secondly, our diets are low in iodine. Our thyroid has receptors, and they need to be filled with iodine. If they don't fill with iodine, it's like a sponge. Your thyroid's like a sponge, and it'll absorb any toxins in the air or the environment, in your cleaning products. So you want to make sure that all the receptors are filled with iodine. Consuming fluoride in our water inhibits the thyroid hormone. Processed or concentrated soy can inhibit the thyroid hormone as well. And drugs like birth control and hormone replacement therapies, these also can block thyroid hormone and lead to low thyroid. Uh-oh. Okay. Yes, possibly. If you're eating a lot of concentrated, like tofu is very concentrated soy, and the fiber has been removed. So if you're eating some tofu, right, just don't eat a block worth and eat it every day. Put it that way, because it's very concentrated. So soybeans are better because you got the fiber. Soy milk, you're not getting a lot in. But tofu, you kind of want to treat more like eggs. Like you don't want to overdose on it, per se. Okay, so here are some symptoms that go with low underactive thyroid function. So a lot of people complain of cold hands, cold feet, so that intolerance, low body temperature, constipation, chronic fatigue, weakness, and again, the list goes on. Depression, sometimes people think they have arthritis. It's just achy joints because of that. Slows down your metabolism, weight gain, shortness of breath, and then, of course, you could end up even with a swollen and large thyroid. Now, that body temperature test handout, maybe we could do that one. Is that okay? So I have a handout for you it's called the basal body temp test. So if you have a mercury thermometer, you can use that. But otherwise, if you have a digital, that's fine. You would do your body temperature 3 times, 2 or 3 times if it's digital, in a row, and do it for a few days in a row and find out what your average is. And so this is telling you how to do this test. You want to put your thermometer beside your bed. So as soon as you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, even if you get up to the washroom, it's going to change your body temperature. So have the thermometer by your bed, take it, put it under your arm, and test your body temperature. And on that page, it'll tell you the range you should be in. If you're under, then that temperature number, if your body temperature is low, you have an underactive thyroid. If it's higher, you have an overactive thyroid. This test is actually more accurate than blood work. The thyroid blood test is such a wide range, right? Like normal can go up to 5, but we actually want you around 2.4, 2.5 is the good number to be around. Your doctor could say to you, your thyroid is fine because you're 4, your number might be at 4 and you can go up to 5, but that's still already an underactive thyroid. And so you might be having those symptoms and you're not being recognized for that because your thyroid isn't functioning correctly. So what can you do? You can increase in some iodine, take some liquid kelp, things like that to try to get your selenium's a good one, things to help get your thyroid going. So do try that test. It lays it all out how to do it, but the only thing is it doesn't say is if you have a digital thermometer, like I say, do it a couple of times in a row for a few days in a row. But again, do it as soon as you wake up. Have it laying by your bed. Do not get out of bed. As soon as you wake up, do it instantly or your body temperature can change. So dietary support, like I say, more iodine is a good thing. That's hard to get. So sometimes taking like what they call a nascent iodine is a plant-based iodine drops. And you can actually do another test. If you get nascent iodine, so don't get rubbing iodine, skin iodine, right? That's not internal. You want food grade internal. And you take a drop and you put it on your upper forearm right here. And then it dries like a nice bright yellow. Let it dry. And time how long it takes for your body to absorb it. It should stay there for about 5 hours. So the shorter the time, the more iodine you're needing. If that disappeared in 1 hour, you know you need more iodine in your diet. If it lasts 6 hours, you know not to take iodine because you don't want an overactive thyroid either, right? So that's a great test to do as well with liquid iodine, but must be food grade. Okay, and in our country, we have to kind of supplement with D and iodine are kind of the two that we mainly miss in this country. If you're from the Maritimes, you eat more of that seaweed and stuff. Vitamin D plays a big role. Cold-pressed oils. Avoid the saturated trans fats and avoid artificial sweeteners. Okay, high levels of stress can also make women crave chocolate. Any women agree to that? Men too, but especially women. And that's because we get low in our B vitamins. can make us even more crave chocolate. Since increasing serotonin levels can lead to significant reductions in anxiety, chocolate is a popular comfort food. It's chosen by emotional eaters because it'll raise your serotonin level and help comfort eaters forget about their emotional and other problems, low self-esteem, and so forth. So eating chocolate makes you feel good because it increases, again, those serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is that neurotransmitter that is responsible for feeling of well-being, enhanced moods, makes you happy. Serotonin makes you happy. Many women experience lowered serotonin levels in 7 to 10 days prior to their menstrual period, which is one reason why premenstrual women often have powerful cravings for chocolate. That time of the month, they will be into the chocolate box. So instead, a B complex can make a big difference. But we want to avoid chocolate and other types of foods and drinks that contain caffeine. We've got, you can see, of course, different drinks there, the soft drinks and, of course, the energy drinks. And what these do, the caffeine will suppress the serotonin. So a lot of times we get up in the morning and we drink coffee thinking it's giving us our energy and being able to get on with our day. And we're feeling miserable and grumpy until we drink coffee. But the caffeine in the coffee is actually suppressing the serotonin, and it's not making us a happier person. We just think it is because of the false chemical to give us that energy. But what goes up must come down, right? And our energy will crash too after that. So chocolate, we know, can be quite addictive. There's a chemical compound in it that will actually stimulate your brain the same way as marijuana. So chocolate can be a drug, right? And it can be very addictive. You crave what you eat. Did you know that? So if you were to in order to weaken your old cravings and strengthen your new ones, you can switch it. You know how? Every 10 to 14 days, your taste buds are renewed. Taste buds go through a life cycle where they grow from basal cells into taste cells, then they die and they get sloughed away. They are created based on what you eat. So if you do not like salads and you force yourself to eat a salad every day for 14 days, you will actually want salad after the 14 days. So it's based on what you eat. So Christmas is a good example when we get into a lot of the sweets and the treats and the goodies. And have you ever noticed by January, it's hard to get off that cycle? We still kind of want the sweets and the treats and the snacks, right? And it takes a bit to cut it and to try to turn that around. And that is because we're into that cycle of our taste buds wanting that. And so as we force our way through for 14 days, whatever we give ourselves, that is what it's going to be remade upon. So we can change our taste buds and we can take them back to what we call the superior diet, right? Those whole foods as grown. Another thing that's really important is to eat on schedule. So consuming your meals on a regular schedule, on the same time every day. Your system is set up to prepare for that meal to come. And so this is going to aid in what we would call hydrochloric acid in the stomach. We will get there. I mentioned the brain already this morning, so I won't repeat that. But when it comes to water, we know that, as I said in the last program as well, we need water for our food, for the digestion aspect. But we also need water very much for the neurotransmitters in the brain to tell the body what to do. And so complication of dehydration is the loss of a number of essential amino acids used to manufacture these neurotransmitters. So we want to stay hydrated, right? It's good for our digestive system. It plays a lot to do with our colon and the making of our stools and so forth. Water between our meals in order to prepare for the digestion by making hydrochloric acid. So on average, we want about 8 cups per day. So when we're trying to lose weight as well, then water is super important. If we do not have the water, the body cannot break down the fat. So it's easier for it to just store it. So trying to aim for that water and drinking the water between our meals. Stacking will prevent your stomach from the ability to make hydrochloric acid for digestion as well. You need your stomach to be completely empty for it to make hydrochloric acid. So if you are snacking, you will never make hydrochloric acid. What's the big deal? I will be telling you. It is a big deal, actually. So fasting between the meals is important. And having those regular meals and not snacking will help balance blood sugars as well. Many have heard of intermittent fasting. This is a good thing too. Or intermittent calorie restriction is a term as well. Basically, it can help, yes, for weight loss, but we want to make sure we're still getting our calories and our nutrients, or we'll end up losing muscle, and we might shrink the muscle that actually helps burn the fat, which goes against us, of course. But the point is, when it comes to fasting, is to make sure you have at least 12 hours if possible. So from the time of supper till breakfast the next day, breakfast is breaking the fast, right? So we do a daily 12-hour fast each night. And that allows your stomach to completely empty. So we want to manage stress. Too much stress or anxiety can actually cause your digestion to be poor, give you digestion issues. In fact, if you're super stressed, sometimes it's better to skip your meal and just drink water than it is to force yourself to eat. Now, of course, long periods of time, that's not wise. But if you're under kind of that rush, it's better to not eat than to eat sometimes. Stress will decrease the production of your hydrochloric acid in your stomach, and our food begins to sit and rot. So, here are some symptoms of low hydrochloric acid. Interesting enough, medically, they will only diagnose an overactive stomach. 80% of all cases are underactive, so people are misdiagnosed and mistreated. The first thing that happens, if you were to have some of these symptoms like acid reflux, heartburn, what's the first thing the doctor will put you on? Antacids, right? Or a pump inhibitor where it keeps your stomach from making the acid, correct? These are symptoms of low hydrochloric acid. And now we're buffering your stomach. So how is it that you can have heartburn and acid reflux but have low stomach acid? It sounds funny, doesn't it? So let me explain. Out of your whole system, we've been saying we want you to be alkaline, right? There's one part of your body that should always be highly acidic, and that is your stomach. And so the acid in the stomach is known as hydrochloric acid to break down your food and move it through. If you don't have the acid to break it down, what happens? The food sits and rots and ferments. As it rots and ferments, it makes its own bubbly brew, which is a type of, acid, and that travels up. So when you take an antacid, it's going to work no matter what the acid is that it's buffering, right? It could be coming from the stomach, it could be coming from the food. It's going to buffer it, and it's going to seem like it's going to work. But it's buffering your stomach now. And so the original problem that caused all this is going to get worse because now you're buffering the stomach. So anyone on antacids are now having to go on stronger antacids, and pretty soon stronger antacids. And now they're in the hospital for pain, right? And it just goes on and on. We can turn this around in 1 week by doing completely the opposite. By encouraging hydrochloric acid to break down your food and move everything through. So here's an example. Let's say you had supper and you had leftover salad, and so you put that in a bowl and you're going to eat it tomorrow night for supper, right? Anyone do that? Yeah, okay. So the next night comes and you forgot that you had salad in the fridge and you made another whole salad. But you have some left. So you pull out that bowl of salad and you put your leftover salad now on top of that salad, right? Because the next day you will eat that salad. Well, the next day comes and you went out for dinner. Right? Okay, now the next day. It's been a while. You forgot there was salad. Now you have a veggie tray. You have some leftover veggies. That salad in the fridge. Well, that's okay. You chop up the veggies, you throw it in the salad. Next night, we will eat that salad. How appealing is that becoming to you now? Would you actually pull out that bowl and start to eat it? Yum, yum? No, because what's happened to the very bottom, it's beginning now to rot, right? And it's going to go up through that food. The same thing with your stomach. You start off in the morning, you're low hydrochloric acid. You eat your breakfast. Anyone that has acid reflux or heartburn knows they get it towards evening, right? You start off, you're feeling pretty good. You eat your breakfast. Now comes lunch. You haven't digested all your breakfast, but you put lunch on top, right? Now comes supper. Now through the day, your metabolism slows down. Your absorption slows down, and now supper is your biggest meal of the day, and you put that on top of your breakfast and your lunch. What's going to happen? Begins to ferment and rot. Those toxins go into the bloodstream. Now what cleans your blood? Your liver. Your liver now has issues. You got a fatty liver. Have you ever had an alcoholic liver and you've never drank alcohol? I have people who come and they'll cry and they'll say to me, my doctor insists that I drink alcohol and I've never touched it. And I said, I believe you. They say, why? And they'll just burst out crying. Why do you believe me? My doctor won't. My doctor tells me, oh yeah, stop lying. How much do you drink in your closet? And I tell them I don't drink. And here's what happens. When that food rots and ferments, those toxins go into your bloodstream the same as if you were drinking alcohol because it's fermented now, right? And it goes into the bloodstream, your liver's cleaning it, and now you have an alcoholic liver, the same as someone who drinks a lot of alcohol. Make sense? You can't break down the fat. It sits. So now you get a fatty liver as well. And so if we can get your digestion going, now we can also reverse that liver condition of an alcoholic liver and a fatty liver as well by getting that food digesting and moving through. You lay at night, and what happens to the acid? It travels upwards, and you got acid reflux. So that is hydrochloric acid, which we need. And so low hydrochloric acid can lead to depleted enzymes. You get enzymes in your food to help break down food. And so people say, well, I just need to eat more raw food and I'll get my enzymes. That's great if you can break down the raw food to get the enzymes, right? If you don't have the hydrochloric acid. And something's got to break down the food, so it starts pulling on all your enzymes that are stored, and now you've depleted your enzymes as well. And your digestion is just getting worse and worse. Probiotics can make a difference, but probiotic, remember, is intestinal tract. And it does affect the intestinal tract over time, but it's begun in the stomach, not just that. Food sensitivities start. So now you've eaten a food, let's say, and it doesn't totally break down, and these large particles go into the intestinal tract and they slip through. Your body sees it now as this large particle that didn't get broken down, and it goes, oh, there's a foreign object. And now your immune system starts to work, and it comes and it attacks that foreign object, which is a large particle that didn't break down, and it attacks it. Now, it's not a bacteria, it's not a virus, it's none of that. It's just a piece of food. So what's it attacking? Yourself. And now we have autoimmune disease, right? So we've arthritis, any of these are very common. Anyone with arthritis has low hydrochloric acid. I can almost guarantee it. So the number one is get your digestion going. IBS, Crohn's, ulcers. Let's talk about ulcers because we always think that's too much acid in the stomach, right? When you have an open wound or a cut in your finger, let's say, and you squeezing a lemon, does it sting? Yes, it stings. If you didn't have that cut and you're squeezing a lemon, does it sting? No. So that's the thing with an ulcer. When you have an open ulcer, it's an open wound. So any acid is going to burn it. It doesn't mean that the acid created it. It just means now we got to buffer your stomach to heal the ulcer. But what started the ulcer in the first place? When you have an empty stomach and you've got some bacteria and stuff, the hydrochloric acid comes, produced, kills any bacteria in your stomach and cleans it up, ready for the meal. If you're low in hydrochloric acid, that bacteria thrives and it grasps in the lining of your stomach, sticks there, and begins to fester and turns into an ulcer. So we're actually taught the opposite. We're taught too much acid, you've got an ulcer. You've been stressed, you got too much acid, now you got an ulcer. Usually it's stress, not enough hydrochloric acid to kill the bacteria, which turned into an ulcer. It's opposite, isn't it? We've been taught opposite. If you have an ulcer, though, you don't jump on hydrochloric acid. You need to heal it first, which means buffering it. So parasites, again, low stomach acid makes that difference for killing off. We can get little parasites on our fruits and our vegetables, right? You're hearing so much about parasites now. Food sensitivities, which I just mentioned, usually it's protein-based. Small intestinal bacterial growth, nutrient depletion. Okay, so especially iron, calcium, right? B12. You need hydrochloric acid to absorb B12. Most people who lack B12, are you ready for this? Are meat eaters. We never hear that. We're always told, you're vegetarian, you better take B12. You don't eat dairy products, you better use B12. Well, yeah, we need some B12, and maybe we're not getting it. But here's the thing. There's something called the intrinsic factor, and that is all to do with the absorption of B12. You might eat meat, you might eat dairy, but if you don't have hydrochloric acid to break it down, you're not going to absorb the B12. And so this is why, in many cases, they're very B12 deficient. So we need B12 for that. So betaine is the other name for hydrochloric acid. There's lots of benefits. I'm just going to move on here. So lemon water, this is your test, okay, to see if you have an under or overactive stomach. What you're going to do is take some lemon juice, put it in water, and you're going to drink it on an empty stomach. If you have stomach pain, severe stomach pain suddenly, if you have an overactive stomach, lemon water is going to put you in instant pain. You know you have an overactive stomach. Do what your doctor's telling you. Get some help, whatever. Try to buffer your stomach. But, like I say, at least 80%, if you were to have that acid reflux, the heartburn, upset stomach, drink some lemon water, and chances are it'll settle it. And if it settles it, you know you have an underactive stomach. Now, this is lemon water to boost your hydrochloric acid. Everybody, as long as you don't have an overactive stomach, which can happen in a small percent still, as long as you don't have an overactive stomach, everybody should do this every morning. It's good for everybody, whether you have an underactive stomach or not. So, here's the neat thing about lemons. Lemons are acidic. But as soon as they hit your saliva, they become alkaline. Lemons alkalize your body. So if you're drinking lemon water and it becomes alkaline, are you giving yourself hydrochloric acid by drinking lemon juice? No, right? Because it's now alkaline. So by drinking lemon water, it's not giving you hydrochloric acid. This is the neat thing about lemons. It's got a property to stimulate your stomach to make hydrochloric acid. So lemons teach your stomach to do what it needs to do. It'll stimulate your stomach to make hydrochloric acid. And everybody should do that first thing in the morning. It's a cleanser. It gets your digestion going. It's the way to go. Okay, and you need pure lemon juice. If you use that real lemon in a plastic bottle or something, it's got citric acid or ascorbic acid, it will not work. It will not stimulate your stomach. You'll be taking in lemon juice, that's fine, but you're not going to get the benefits. So you need a pure lemon juice, either fresh squeezed or pure lemon from a health store or something. Okay, and you want to do that empty stomach first thing in the morning and wait at least a half hour before eating. Give your stomach a chance to make that hydrochloric acid. And sometimes you might need to take plant-based digestive enzymes to get your enzymes built up. Always avoid Tums. Avoid any antacids. Let this be your Tums. When you get an upset stomach, when you get the bloating, take a plant-based digestive enzymes. It's going to break down the food and move it through for you, okay? Other digestive aids, peppermint can be very soothing. Sometimes it helps. Other people, they're sensitive to it. But you can try peppermint tea is a good one. Ginger, we talked about, is another option. By the way, peppermint tea is very high in potassium. In the summertime especially, when you're out in the heat, It can pull potassium out of your body, and some people end up with heat stroke. And if you drink a cup of mint tea, whether it's hot, cold, warm, it'll replace your potassium. I had at the camp, when I used to cook at a camp, some of our students would be just passing out, and they'd have them all over the cafeteria floor with fans and ice packs. And I finally come out with some mint tea, room temperature, and I get down there with a little straw and get them to drink it. And those that drank the mint tea, literally in 15 to 20 minutes, got up and walked out and felt perfect. So at the end of your day, when you're exercising or you're out in the heat, especially gardening and that, replace your potassium with a cup of mint tea. And it's just good for digestion overall. So B12 is important. It's important to our nervous system. But keep in mind that just because you eat, like I said, animal products, doesn't mean that you have B12. Who needs the most hydrochloric acid? People who eat meat. Meat needs hydrochloric acid to break it down. Vegetables, we need some, but we do not need as much as those who are eating meat and animal products. And that's the reason why so many lack B12, even though they're eating meat and animal products. So we know that there is a deficiency can cause all sorts of central nervous issues. So tingling in your hands and feet are number one symptoms of that. But we also know the effect of B12 on cognitive function. So depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, dementia. B12 plays a big role directly in the brain as well. Folic acid or folate can work with B12. They go hand in hand. Folic acid or folate help B12 to be absorbed. And you want folate. You don't want folic acid. It's two different things. You want that active form of folate. Folic acid can actually make people sick. So make sure you're working with the folate if you need, especially for things like Alzheimer's and cognitive function aspect. There's a number of foods that have folate in them, and one thing that I don't have listed here that's usually one of my highest, I don't know why I don't have it here. Have you ever heard of black-eyed peas or beans? Very high in folate. So when we're doing like a depression recovery program, we will promote recipes with black-eyed peas. Okay, we talked a bit about sleep already, so I won't waste a lot of your time on this one. But it is important to put our bodies on what we call a 24-hour circadian rhythm. Go to bed at the same time. Get up at the same time. Eat your meals at the same time. Your brain will know then what hormones to make and not make as needed. Remember, we talked about an hour before midnight versus an hour after. Harvard researchers discovered just 20 minutes of relaxation will boost genetic activity, which will strengthen immune function and improve the ways we metabolize energy and regulate blood sugar. So sometimes just taking that short little cat nap in the afternoon can rebalance us. When it comes to rest, we need different forms of rest. We need daily rest for that circadian rhythm, as we talked about. We need weekly rest. And we need a recreation rest, and we need meditation on God's word. That is the most restful way we could possibly have, is prayer and God's word. So there's different forms of rest that we need to focus on. So some key stress control measures would be healthy adaptation, healthy lifestyle, exercise, water, so forth. Helping others can take the thoughts off of our own problems, dwelling on the positive. And of course, trust in God. Just to mention vitamin D. Vitamin D, we talked a little bit about how the benefits of it for the immune system, but I didn't go into it. So here, just to explain, there's 3 types of vitamin D. It's the sunshine vitamin because it's produced in your skin in response to sunlight. It'll affect as many as 2,000 genes in your body. It does a number of things, vitamin D, especially when it comes to depression, anxiety, stress, but right down to even bones and fractures and kidneys. So the question is, do we get enough vitamin D? The old recommendation used to be only 600 to 800 IUs, and everyone warned, careful, it's poisonous, it's toxic. And now today we are up to, medically, they will recommend a good 2,000 per person as the minimum amount per day. Canada, we were only allowed to do 1,000 IUs per day. And US, they've been selling them in pill form of 25,000 IUs. And so now in Canada, we're up to 2,500 IUs per pill or drop. It's a very inexpensive painkiller. Sunlight will raise your serotonin level. That's why it makes you feel happy. So I mentioned about the SAD disease already in this morning again, but it's known as the winter blues from the physical point of view now. And so sometimes the winters can get us a little down, right? Especially if the sun's not shining, it can be a little depression. And so 2 or 3 out of 100 people are affected by SAD in Canada. 15 out of 100 have less severe symptoms, and we call those winter blues. SAD is more common in women than men, usually beginning with people in their 20s. Older people are at a lower risk because a lot of them like to just stay indoors anyways. And children can also experience it, even though it's less common. So serotonin, as mentioned, is your happy, feel-good hormone. When we lack sunlight, we can lack making serotonin in the brain. If you think of Thomas Kinkade, who did the paintings, contemporary painter, do you notice that he always has a light on in the house? It just gives you that warm, wonderful feeling. Where I was staying last night, as I walked up to where I go, that's the first thing I noticed was these beautiful lights shining out of the window, and it warmed my heart because instantly it makes you feel like it's a safe place for you to be, right? It's just a comforting thing. Lights will do that in the darkness, and that's why he gives it that cozy, happy feeling in all his paintings. Whoops, not sure what that happened. So again, many of us, no matter what, we all face times in our life of sad disease, of sickness, aging, and death. And it can be very discouraging, but we have to always remember God is there for us. That first handout we handed you out earlier with the hydrotherapy, I forgot to mention, is a page of what we would call spiritual vitamins. And those are just positive encouragement, little scripture to uplift you, depending on how you're feeling at the time. So do use those. They are encouraging. So a lot of times people who have sad disease sleep very poorly for many hours, partially because they don't have enough serotonin to convert to sleep, known as melatonin. So melatonin helps us sleep at night. Has anyone ever taken melatonin to sleep? Yeah, and for some people it works and some it doesn't. Those that it doesn't work for is because you don't need melatonin. If you're low in melatonin, it'll work. If you don't need it, it won't work. And so just subjecting ourselves to some light, like I said, will make the serotonin, but we need serotonin in order to make melatonin. So the pineal gland draws what is called tryptophan. So again, when people come in and they ask for melatonin, I'll back them up. If you're not sleeping well and melatonin works for you, I can actually say chances are you're probably not the happiest during the day either, right? So those of you that take melatonin, you'd probably agree that you would like to be happier during the day. And the reason is you need serotonin, which makes you happy, in order to make melatonin. So if you're short on melatonin, I know you're short on serotonin. So why is it we take the end product? Instead, let's back it up. And what makes it in the beginning is what is called tryptophan. It's an amino acid. And so this tryptophan is, do I have it here? Yeah. So tryptophan, the amino acid, is then converted into serotonin. And then your serotonin is converted into melatonin to help you sleep. And that conversion of serotonin into melatonin requires darkness, sufficient calcium. If you're low in calcium, you'll wake up. Calcium absorbs while you sleep. Out of all nutrients, it's the only exception to the rule that absorbs while you sleep. You should always take it at night. And so you'll wake up at 2, 3 in the morning, and if you can't go back to sleep and you get muscle cramps in the evenings, it's a lack of calcium, not magnesium necessarily. And so you need the calcium, but you also need vitamin B6 to help you convert the serotonin into melatonin. And B6 does a number of things for the body as well, besides. And so a lot of times we think of all the other B vitamins, but not B6. But women particularly can lack in vitamin B6. B6 is very hormonal. And so especially younger women who have PMS, who have a lot of cramps, if they took a vitamin B6, within 20 minutes, those cramps are gone. It works like a painkiller. It's because we lack B6 hormonally. So lots of good uses for vitamin B6. It's a precursor to at least 50 enzymes needed for the metabolism of all amino acids. Here are some foods that are high in melatonin naturally. One of the other ones I should have on here is cherries. And some people do black cherry juice in the evening to help them sleep as well. So those are foods to help boost your melatonin. And then ways to boost your serotonin to make the melatonin, again, is get yourself subjected to light. So if you don't have sunlight, then have a light indoor to subject yourself to. Exercise is another way, and eating wisely. So those who lack serotonin tend to crave the refined carbs. So eating more whole foods as growing, your body will be able to make more serotonin. And here are the foods rich in tryptophan, which is that first essential amino acid to make the serotonin, to make the melatonin. And so black-eyed peas, again, besides the folate, is high in tryptophan, right? Black walnuts, almonds, sesame seeds, and so forth. And then we talked about omega-3 already, so I won't repeat that. But omega-3 is directly linked to the brain, again. Exercise, I won't go too much into that, but we know exercise helps with digestion. It'll release stress. Taking long, brisk walks, excellent exercise, but do you know the number one exercise for depression? Gardening. Yeah, because you're physically active, you're working the ground, but you're using the frontal lobe of your brain. So gardening is the best you could do, especially if you do it first thing in the morning as the sun comes up. That stimulates your brain to make serotonin, right? And go for a nice walk as the sun is going down and prepare your brain for the melatonin. We talked about avoiding pessimism. Here is a good little test for you to do. Number 2 homework. This is trickier than you think. It's a 2-week challenge if you can. But you are not allowed to say anything critical about anyone or anything for 14 days. If you do, you start all over. Try it now. Chances are most of us will never make it out that door. It's really an eye-opener. Even if you don't do this honestly for 2 weeks, it makes us realize how critical and how pessimistic we can actually be. Okay? So you can think it. But especially, you're not allowed to say it. Some days we just have to create our own sunshine, right? Always think of the positive. Count your blessings. Willie Nelson said, when I started counting my blessings, my whole world turned around. Count our blessings. We have a lot of discouraging things happen every day. But if you really stop and think, we also have a lot of blessings. And those are what keep me going. Those are what need to keep all of us going. Count our blessings. They're there. They're there. And there's always someone worse off than us. Have you noticed that? Proverbs tells us an anxious heart weighs a man down. Does it ever? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? It doesn't help, does it? Sometimes it's easier said than done. But just reading these promises can be so encouraging. So what do we worry about? 40% are things that'll never happen. 30% is of the past that can't be changed. 12% is criticism by others, mostly untrue. 100% is our health, which gets worse. 10% is our health, which gets worse with stress. And 8% is the real problems that can be solved. Isn't that true? Yeah. And then, as my closing slide, this is a favorite saying of mine, where Corrie ten Boom says, any concern too small to be turned into a prayer is too small to be made into a burden. Right? Just remember who is there to hear us and uplift us. We're not traveling through this world alone. And we can't We can't. This world is getting more and more discouraging. So if you are discouraged and you want to be encouraged and you're interested in knowing about God more and you want to have more of a relationship with him, be sure to contact the ladies, the people that are in charge here. They have different programs that are going on all the time. And even Bible studies are being held here. And everyone is always welcome to attend that as well. I wish I lived in this area. I would attend here. I love this place. It's a very nice community. And so in closing, I just want to thank you all for coming and putting up with me this long. I know so many of you are tired. It's been a long afternoon, but I hope that the information has been beneficial to you and you're able to take something home. And it's only my desire and wish that your life is changed in a positive way because of it today. So, any questions? Or you're very welcome. I'm out.
Thank you so much, Darlene. She traveled a long way to see us. I really do hope you were blessed by the information. Do take a couple. Yes, let's give her a hand. Absolutely. I really do pray that you can take a few of those nuggets home and actually incorporate them into your life. That's the biggest thing. I know we can't do all of it, just take small steps, but take the ones that you know you can do and keep adding to it. It should be live streamed, I think, so you can even go back on the website and revisit it. So that would be really nice. Darlene, we have a little gift for you to take home, and we just thank you so much. Before we let you go, please visit us tomorrow if you can. Darlene is going to give us more information and do many cooking demonstrations from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. tomorrow. She's going to demonstrate, and then at the end, if you've ever been to our cooking demos, you get to sample all of it, which is the best part, because then you can take home, and we get you the recipes and everything so that you can take it home what you like and incorporate that into your lifestyle. So God bless. I pray a safe, actually, let's just pray for safe travels home. Oh, yes. Which one? Do we have one more to hand out, or did we? We got them all out. Okay, we got them. Okay. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for this blessing, giving us all this knowledge and showing us all the wonderful healing methods and foods and lifestyle to help keep us healthy and happy and free of anxiety and depression. So, Lord, we just pray that everyone can take some of these nuggets home, incorporate them, and I pray for safe travels for everyone. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much.